In this DVD, we'll be covering 5 main topics. What are floods? How can you prepare for a flood? What can you do during a flood? How to stay safe after a flood? Who to contact for more information. What are floods? So what are floods and how do they occur? In general, a flood is when a large amount of water covers land that is normally dry. In the Virginia area, floods result from very heavy rainfall over many days in the North and South Parra River catchment areas. This rain causes the Gawler River to overflow and flooding could occur to properties to either side of the river. Virginia has a past history of flooding and it is very likely that Virginia will experience flooding again. On average, Virginia has a flood every 10 years, although a flood can occur at any time if there is enough rain. The last flood in Virginia was in 2005, causing $65 million in crop, equipment losses and damage to homes. You can reduce flood damage by being prepared. The Virginia area is generally affected by slowly rising river floods. During flood times, you will hear the following flood warnings.
Minor flooding, moderate flooding, local flooding, significant river rises, major flooding.
You can also access these flood warnings from the Bureau of Meteorology website. Before a flood. The best way to reduce losses from flooding is to be prepared. So what can you do before a flood? Firstly, learn about the history of flooding in your area. It is likely that your home, business or property will be affected by flooding based on the past history of floods. What's the highest mark the water has reached in your area? If you haven't lived in the area during flood times, ask your neighbours about flooding history on your road. Next, do you have a flood action plan for your household? Here are some ideas that can help you make a flood action plan. In a flood, floodwaters may prevent you from leaving your property. You need to leave your property before this happens. You need to prepare a flood action plan to help get you, your family, your workers, your pets and livestock to a safe area before the floodwaters restrict your evacuation. Be aware of flood advice from local authorities and listen to local ABC Radio 891. During flood times, flood warnings and advice will come from a number of sources. These include the Bureau of Meteorology, the State Emergency Service, the police, the local CFS and local ABC Radio. You need to learn what hazards to look for in a flood. Be aware that there may be live power lines and other underwater hazards. Learn how you can protect your property. Before you are faced with a flood situation, you need to learn how to protect your family, home, possessions and business. This may include being aware of the direction from which the floodwaters will come and identify the areas of your property likely to be affected. Look at where you may have to lay sandbags and maybe put a pile of sand near that area. Keep a supply of sandbags in your shed and make sure your family know how to use them. Decide what items need to be protected first, such as irrigation pumps or household items, and plan how you can protect them. Decide how large items, such as fridges and furniture, can be raised above flood levels. Teach responsible members of the family how and where the electricity and gas can be cut off. Make all family members aware of the emergency and information contact numbers. When you have a plan, put it somewhere it's easy to get to in an emergency. Create a flood emergency kit, complete with a battery or crank-powered radio and torch, emergency water supply and first aid kit. During a flood. Okay, so you're faced with a flood in your area. What can you do to protect people, pets and property? Follow your flood action plan. Tune your radio to ABC 891 for up-to-date flood warnings and advice. Switch off the electricity at the meter box and turn off the gas. Protect any items that can't be moved, such as irrigation pumps. Place a strong plastic bag full of sand in the toilet bowl and over the bath and shower outlets to prevent backflow of water and sewage into your home. Start sandbagging as early as possible. Sandbags can be made from anything at hand. Even garden soil in a pillowcase can be used in an emergency. Move all pets and livestock to a safe location. Move all portable plant equipment and household items to a safe location. Flood dangers. A flooded area can be extremely dangerous. The major causes of injury during a flood are water depth and current. It is hard to judge water depth during a flood. You can't see what is under the water. There is a high risk of injury from hidden items under the water. Also, items caught up in the floodwaters don't always float on top of the water. Items flowing with the water can easily knock you over. If you are wet and cold for a long period of time, you can become sick. Risk of illness. In a flood, fresh water can become mixed with toilet waste. This water will make you sick. Floodwaters can also make food bad. Food that has been wet from a flood will make you sick. Water and electricity are a deadly combination. Turn off the power at the first sign of flooding. After a flood. It is very important that you are careful after a flood, as things may have changed. Firstly, do not eat any contaminated food. Any food that has become wet will make you sick. You must boil all water until the authorities say that the tap water is safe to drink. Do not handle wet electrical equipment. Water and electricity are a deadly mix. If in doubt, call a licensed electrician to check your property. Avoid wading in shallow water, as it is not safe. There will be hazards under the water that you cannot see. Beware of snakes and spiders. Snakes can swim and will be very agitated during and after a flood. There may be road hazards. Follow the signs. Summary. Minimising the risk to your family, workers and property during a flood is something you can do. Learn about the history of flooding in your area. Be prepared by creating a flood action plan. Be aware of when a flood is approaching by listening to the radio and checking with your authorities. During a flood, protect your family, workers, pets and property by following your flood action plan. During a flood, turn off electricity and block all toilets and drains. After a flood, do not consume contaminated water or food, and avoid wading in water as it is not safe. Thanks for taking the time to watch this DVD. For further information, please call this number.